So will Caitlin Clark be a good pro? Absolutely. Will Caitlin Clark come into the WNBA and do what she's doing right now? Immediately? Absolutely not. Not gonna happen.
Okay.
Sheryl Swoopes isn't one to shy away from confrontation. A legend in women's basketball, Swoopes has built a career on her ability to dominate on the court, both physically and mentally. But when she recently threw a public tantrum, it was a different side of her that people witnessed. The event that sparked this outburst: Stephen Curry's strong stance against the harsh bullying directed at Caitlin Clark, one of the rising stars in women's college basketball. The situation quickly turned into a media storm, with Swoopes' reaction leaving everyone questioning how two basketball icons could end up on such opposite sides. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. All comments were pointed, slicing through the noise and directly addressing the negativity that had begun to swirl around the young athlete. He didn't mince words, calling out bullies with a fiery intensity that surprised many, and it seemed that he had hit a nerve. Clark, a player known for her competitive edge and flair on the court, had been the subject of harsh comments, particularly after some of her bold plays in high-stakes games. While many expected Curry's support to be applauded, Swoopes saw things differently. What happened next was unexpected. Swoopes, who is no stranger to the pressures and critiques athletes face, took issue with Curry's remarks. But this wasn't just a casual disagreement. Her frustration boiled over into a full-blown tantrum. In a heated moment, she made her feelings known, voicing what some might call a defensive tough love, while others saw it as a shocking display of misplaced anger. She seemed to imply that Clark's detractors had a point and that Curry's intervention was unnecessary. It wasn't the first time Swoopes had shown her fiery side, but the intensity of her reaction surprised many. Perhaps it was because this wasn't just a private conversation. It was out there for everyone to see. Cameras caught her throwing her hands up in exasperation, pacing back and forth like a coach who had just watched their team blow a lead in the final seconds. She wasn't holding back, and neither were her words. The tantrum wasn't about subtlety. Swoopes, clearly agitated, expressed her frustration in a way that only she could. Her passion for the game and her belief in the toughness required to succeed were on full display, but the method of delivery raised eyebrows. Many people wondered what had pushed her to this extreme. Swoopes' frustration wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction, though. She has always championed resilience in sports. From her early days in the WNBA, she made it clear that toughness, both mental and physical, was the key to success. She'd battled critics, injuries, and the pressure of being one of the most visible players in women's basketball, and her response to adversity had always been to push through it. So when Curry, known for his humility and calculated responses, waded into the controversy surrounding Clark, it might have felt to Swoopes like he was babying the next generation. He took a stance that called for compassion and support in the face of bullying. Swoopes, on the other hand, seemed to believe that criticism, even when harsh, was a necessary part of the journey. In her eyes, Clark, like all great players, would have to rise above the noise without anyone coming to her rescue. For many observers, it was a classic case of old school versus new school mentality. Swoopes represented the grit and grind mentality of a previous generation, while Curry, with his more nuanced take, symbolized the evolving landscape of professional sports where mental health and emotional well-being are now part of the conversation. It was almost as if Swoopes was saying, "We didn't have anyone to defend us, so why should they?" But to reduce Swoopes' tantrum to a mere generational divide would be oversimplifying things. There was something more personal about her outburst, a deeper frustration that seemed to simmer beneath the surface. Perhaps it was the fact that, despite her immense success and contributions to the sport, she had never quite received the same universal love and respect as her male counterparts. And yet, despite the public nature of her outburst, there was a sense that Swoopes was speaking from a place of love for the game. She didn't dislike Caitlin Clark. In fact, she probably admired her. But for Swoopes, part of that admiration stemmed from the idea that Clark would have to learn to navigate the tough waters of public opinion without being shielded from the inevitable criticism that comes with greatness. To her, that's what being a legend is all about. Curry, on the other hand, seemed to be saying that just because criticism is inevitable doesn't mean it's acceptable. His stance was clear. There's a difference between healthy competition and toxic bullying, and the latter has no place in sports, or anywhere for that matter. His support for Clark wasn't just about her as an individual, but about the larger culture surrounding sports today. As the debate swirled, it was hard not to notice the differences in how the two icons carried themselves. Curry, calm and collected, continued to make his case through interviews and public appearances, always careful with his words but firm in his beliefs. Swoopes, on the other hand, seemed to thrive on the chaos, her tantrum becoming a symbol of her relentless passion for the game. Where Curry was measured, Swoopes was raw. Where Curry was diplomatic, Swoopes was unapologetic. The contrast between the two only added fuel to the fire, as fans and commentators alike weighed in on who was right. What's fascinating about this clash is that both Swoopes and Curry are at the Swoopes believes that criticism, no matter how harsh, is something that will ultimately shape a player into a champion. Curry, on the other hand, believes that a supportive environment is just as important as criticism for helping an athlete reach their full potential. Both perspectives have merit, but in this case, they collided with a force that no one saw coming. Swoopes' outburst was a reminder that even the greatest athletes have moments where their emotions get the best of them. It was also a reflection of her deep connection to the sport and her belief in the toughness that it requires. But Curry's response to the situation showed that the game is changing, and with it, so are the conversations around what it means to be a great player, a great leader, and a great person. As the dust settled, one thing was clear. Both Swoopes and Curry cared deeply about the future of basketball. Their disagreement, while public and dramatic, wasn't about ego or rivalry. For Swoopes, the tantrum may have been an unfiltered reaction, but it was born out of the same fire that made her a legend in the first place. In the end, it's not really about who's right or wrong. It's not the fact that the conversation is happening at all. Swoopes' tantrum may have stolen the headlines, but the real story is about the evolution of basketball and the athletes who are leading the charge in their own ways, toward a future that balances toughness with empathy. Whether you side with Curry's call for compassion or Swoopes' insistence on resilience, there's no denying that both of them are shaping the game for generations to come. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.